haul them away tonight from the dumpsters.
You know what all those You rig them with little alarms, you know.
Yes, this is the AnimEigo dumpster company.
Do you know
those artificial dumpsters are going to be coming in just about now?
Yeah, well, there's a tradition in Japan of recyclers going around and getting up waste paper, and they give you a little toilet paper, you know. And so we were thinking we should get a truck and go around with a similar song instead of saying like "Bring out your waste paper, bring out your waste cells," and we would hand
bring
them,
out
like,
your cells,
rolls of dollar bills. That one never got off the ground. The other plan we were going to do is get a sound truck during the election season and go around saying, "We're a bunch of guys in. Please don't vote for anyone who uses sound trucks." Okay, I think we should start the official and serious part of the discussion. So yeah, you can turn on the camera now. So my name is Robert Woodhead. I'm supposed to be the president of AnimEigo, which means that. So this is the end session, and we're here to answer any and all questions that you'd like to answer about what we do and what we're going to do and what we'd like to do and what we don't care to do. So, you have anything you want to say? Thank you. You're right.
We actually want to thank you all very much. We've had a really prosperous couple of years. We do it all people. We're glad to appreciate what we've tried to do. Bring the week out of bring high quality examination. That's the format that everybody can understand. Sometimes sound of the language, tremendous sound. You say you branched out. Roll up the audience. Get it out into the grid and watch that. Never seen Japanese animation. Presume that it's a Saturday morning teacher. So that may be.
I think there's a few chairs up here in the front. Okay, I always find that these sessions work best with question and answer.
That's it. Very nice.
Yeah, right. Yes.
So what's going on?
Okay, well, let's see. Continuing with Christian Center, which is going to be coming out every month for the next 5 years, and this summer, next month, we've got the Super Informed Double Feature, which is Scrum Wars and Without Force.
How many of you have seen Scramble?
I highly recommend it. This is a real treat. This is done in the wacky racist style with little guys, little the SE type format using Nobel Prizes and
IR and Gal Force. It's all the army.
each of their own vehicles races. It's what it is. It's truly fun.
Yeah, I have a question. You have your flyer in the middle and after at the bottom, which Anime or whatever. I'd like to ask, who coined the term extremely silly movie?
A lot of the really stupid language on the flyers and on packaging and stuff like that is perpetrated by me. The really bad English puns that we do in Shiatsu, where we take famous movie lines and incorporate them into dialogue. Whenever we find a line in Shiatsu that matches is literally translated into a famous movie line, we can't resist. We know a lot of references to Indiana Jones movies. We've done a lot of references. We did Twilight Zone. We even put in the latest one has a Shakespeare reference in it. What?
Could you speak up a bit, please, for the elderly?
I'm sorry, is this good enough for you, Mom? I think there are a few more seats at the front. you know, we like to have fun with this. I mean, this is not just a job for us. It started as just this kind of silly thing we thought we might try, maybe happen somewhere, and it only incidentally turned into sort of a full-time job. So, like, you know, we don't see any reason to take it particularly seriously. And quite frankly, if you've seen 10 Little Outforce, then extremely silly nudity is a perfectly apt and exact description of what's on the film.
Well, actually, I will mention this. There's a couple of things do take some and all the work. Not blocking something, but fundamental to our company. We take incredible subtitles, behind subtitles, accuracy of the translation. We do, I don't know how many of you have heard of our conference, but we do something in our translation we pioneered that really made a difference. We have a really good translator. We pick somebody who is American to Japanese, somebody Japanese who speaks American, and I will say American. And we have both do this translations. That puts two culturally different spins on the translation, and then we meld it together when I edit them. And then Natsumi works over it, Rob works over it, Michael works over it. And a lot of times we go back to the studio and ask them, you know, talk to the author to find out what actually, because some of it is really obscure.
Unfortunately, the problem is that 99% of the time they come back and say, we don't have the faintest idea.
It was so long ago we don't remember. So, and Robert's written some really great computer software to help in the exact timing. So we do all of our work pre-production before we ever go to the studio. And this saves tremendous studio time. That's our cost down. We're able to keep our costs down to bring it was a reasonable price for all. You know, when we were first doing it, it was available in the States, but remember that? We was that long as we remember those prices. And so we were coming out at $34.95 and $39.95 versus $150, $120. That was huge.
Yeah, it's still expensive. It's too expensive.
But at least you were buying it instead of bootlegging it. That was what the big difference is. And I think that's one of the biggest swings we've seen in public opinion in the last several years. You can never eradicate it and steer down. People really appreciate the fact we have a legitimate licensed copy. Extended respect. Extended respect. And that won't put the bootlegger out of business, like unless you buy it. They'll go on to do something else instead. They say, we thank you for this.
Yes.
How do you see yourself in, say, 4 or 5 years? Are you going to be a niche company or a niche business?
It's very hard to say.
We're already.
Yeah, we're already in the mainstream of the niche. Our strategy has, from day one, has been to try to make animation, Japanese animation, broadly popular. I think where we differ from some of the other companies is not so much in what we want to do, but the approach by which we go at it. As you know, a lot of the other companies have done dubs. In the case of, for example, Streamline, they've been doing dubs since day one. And in the case of US renditions, US Monocore, they started doing subtitling and then they started doing the dubs. We are going to be doing a dub. We announced it in our annual gossip actually just got mail. It's going to be out early next year at the Writing Bean. And we expect eventually to dub all of our products, including probably but where I think we differ from the other companies is that each company seems to have a point at which they say the market is big enough at this point that we can spend this number of dollars to do a dub. Okay, so let's start doing dubs. And each company has a different sort of price point at which they think they can afford to be dubbing. And I think ours is higher if we really want to spend a fair amount of money to put into production values to try and address some of the shortcomings that the fans have commented dubbing, although it's been in our game plan since day one. It's just a matter of like, when are we comfortable to spend the money we want to spend to get the job right?
I do want to reassure you that we will not stop the subtitles. The point is that we will do the dubs as adjunct to our subtitles, not replacement. So we will always have for the fans who really care about quality. That's why we're getting more and more readers. Really give. Well, it's a very small market. Not exactly a small market, but it's one that we know a lot of people care about. So, again, that's what makes it possible for us to continue to raise live.
How did they final decision about that?
We just need to change
the production on those tapes. I would like to put them, if I do, I'll put them all out on one LD. And I don't see any reason why we should.
We're actually doing something that the fans have requested for a long time. The number one request is to put out Maddox and Ryder. So we're going to be doing that.
We resubtitled it, by the way, with our current title system. So the subtitles are much better than the original, which is actually pretty funny because when those first came out, all the fan publications said, wonderful, these are the best subtitles we've ever seen. We got really swell heads about it. And over the last 3 years, we've been continually improving our techniques and our software. And so, we had to look back at these, and then we went back to redo them. Is this garbage? and Michael House, our subtitling coordinator, he went back and looked over the translations that we did back there. Oh, how could we do that? It was a real sort of eye-opener to show where we were and the sort of standards that were excellent then, and the standards that are our standards of excellence now, and how we sort of expanded those and become more professional, more perfectionists in our production techniques. And so we had a lot of fun doing that. You'll see that like this. Yes.
Getting back to the subtitles.
Yes.
Yeah, there is also a difference in the market. The fan market, people care about quality, which is really special. They understand, well, because they're all literate. Read the subtitles. That actually sounds humorous, but unfortunately, this is a great match. You know how many audio books there are in Walden these days? It's not because there's a lot of one.
No, it's because a lot of people can't read and drive at the same time.
Well, anyway, so what happens is that the dub will come out of a mass market type of release that we want, and or the groups, they have a price line that's discounted placement. When you're dealing with the subtitle film, you really have more like a foreign film production, like a Swedish film or a Thai film, or your regular Japanese Kurosawa film with a subtitle. People expect it, and it won't be important to really quality production. But when you do a dub, you're out there with it.
If you get a member of
What we generally do with our shows is we have agreements with the Japanese rights holders who act as an agent license for those rights. And yeah, we do foresee that things will go on TV, but once it's dubbed, it's potential for TV. But there are things like Public Price or International. Once it's dubbed, I would not be very surprised at all to see it on the Sci-Fi Channel, to see it on something like that.
Although we really like to put it on a channel.
Carl got several of his movies in South Africa. It's a very good development for the industry involved because it's introducing a lot more people to that name. I mean, a lot of people rag on Carl in the fan community, but Carl is one of the people who's done more for Japanese animation than practically anybody. He has an approach to his marketing and what he's trying to do in terms of popularizing Japanese animation that is perhaps not very acceptable to purists in the fan community, but that shouldn't take away from the fact that he has probably introduced more people to Japanese animation than anybody else in the industry. What with Woodhead and some of his movies and his distribution in Europe. So I think there's a lot of Oh, yes, that was actually in the original Japanese release.
I've heard from people that a few other companies would discuss that a little bit on.
We like things like that.
Well, you mean bootleg copies that didn't have it?
No, it's different.
If it's in the original Japanese, we release it. We take the original message and we don't edit it all.
We never do it.
Well, you didn't run to the end of the credits? Well, that'll teach you. Don't you know you should always, when you're in a theater, always look to the end of the credits because you never know what might be there.
One example is being the people with
No, I don't think I said.
At the end of the credit, the very end of the book at the same time, I'm cool. Oh, yeah. I use that. I was really surprised to see that kind of
Yeah, they do this. Yes.
Get me back to AnimEigo. What is it that you were saying as you gave your list? What is it you want?
Boy, just about anything that's good. I hesitate to list specific titles because the next, in about 30 seconds, we'll be out on the net. Oh, AnimEigo's going to license this. We have a very strict policy about not discussing anything that might be in the works. For two good reasons. First, we don't want to disappoint you if something happens. Occasionally it has, where it turns out that for one reason or another the license is available. And second, we don't want to tip off our competitors and what we're going after.
Unfortunately, there's very little. And most of it's old. And getting older by the day. The trouble is that there's one of these big companies and the same thing to look at. Very hard to say.
Next question.
Just that we love Miyazaki, though.
Let me put it to you this way. If you were in Tokyo and you had an opportunity to get some Miyazaki cells, would you say no? Or would you basically start pulling out the traveler's checks?
That really has made a huge difference with our time. We see these people on a daily, weekly basis who have coffee, drop by the studio, chat.
Running to their dumpsters.
Oh, it's just the trash can. But I like that one. All right, that's it. So it has made a huge difference in our availability of life. And things will come up. We get calls all the time from somebody who wants to go over and chat. Pick our brains about something. We turn it off. That's the way things work. So that's probably the biggest, I would say, asset in the business.
If you recall, when we both went to Japan, started moving to Japan,
big studios in Toronto, Vancouver, live. Yeah. It's closed, a very closed group. What doesn't work is
We spend 6 months a year just talking with various people about various things, building relationships before we really start talking services.
so you can have 15, 20 meetings before anybody even puts them on the table. That says, well, maybe we'd like to take a shot at doing this. I mean, people get married with less people. Relationships, sure. Really is. So it's very difficult to explain. Anything else?
We get the impression you're obviously successful. In terms of units, are we talking line, on 1,000 laser discs, 2,000, 5,000?
Yes. No, and one of these are laserdiscs. Okay, tapes vary all over the place. Subtitled tapes. No matter what, there's a core group of fans who buy everything, and so you can depend, in the first year, 2,500, 3,000 tapes, no problem on anything. Even strange stuff like Otaku.
It's not strange, it's mainstream.
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody
Actually,
have
that's
a copy?
kind of and then there are there are a lot of tapes that do that, and there are a lot of tapes that do a little bit better, and then there are a few tapes that do really, really well that have broken above 10,000 units.
Well, we are shooting for the 90s. The situation got so tight. That's so not supposed to be that. That's how tight it got. But before, the older stuff, like what was the price? 20,000 units. Well, we are rapidly approaching the time when we will be with lifetime Japanese sales. Yeah. At that point, they will really see it. And when you're only selling 2,000 or 3,000 copies of a tape, or 1,500 like you did when we first started, I mean, people say, that's nice. Buys lunch or something, they're royalty share. When we start bringing over checks that are, 5 or 6 figures, royalties is covered. Maybe there's something over here we should look at. Want some more? And that's a really big thing. In fact, actually, that's really one funny thing to talk about is that the history of you have to really understand something. Some of you have been around for a while. The history of animation in the United States, first in Japan, during the 70s and 80s, was one of fanboys basically going to Japan, all excited, and give us a license. We don't have any money. Give us a license. I'll give you a couple bucks. We'll make you big. We'll on TV. We'll be on every station. We'll be in theaters. And
We tried this, it didn't work.
Well, by the time we tried it, it had 10 years to be burned. Now, then they sent stuff over, and we won't even discuss the ones that got cut up, butchered, edited into the ground, dubbed in this foreign language that wasn't even American. Okay? And these things all happened at property. And the trouble was, in the early days of Japanese contracts, that were typical Japanese things were relationships. So the contracts weren't for 2 years or 5 years, it was forever. And the companies went out of business, and they sold their rights to somebody else, or bankrupt this day, and all that. God knows who ended up with these things. In fact, we're still sorting some of this out today. Nobody knows who got them. The rights are so frightening. But anyway, the thing that happened was one thing, and it sure happened in this entire time period, that whatever Japanese company got in their upfront deposit money was all they ever saw. No company in the United States ever sent them a royalty check. Ever. So whatever their deal was all they ever saw. So when we offered them, an advance and a royalty, they said, yeah, sure, fine, it's okay. How big's the advance? Actually, that's all they cared about. And then lo and behold,
we started getting royalty checks. The first one called, remember the first one called, I said, we got this check, is there an error? we don't understand what it's for.
To tell the story absolutely correctly, we try and run AnimEigo in Japan as a Japanese company that just happens to be run by strange foreigners. So we sent them a footy code, which is electronic funds transfer for their actually UMAX for overall prices for their overage. And so the next day we get a call. It says, "You just sent us some money. What is it for?" And we said, "That's your overage." And they said, "What?" We said, "That's your overage. That's the extra royalty money you get because we earned up in advance." And it took us about 10 minutes to explain to them what the hell this was.
They'd never seen it
before.
And now, one thing that we are very proud of is that all of our kids, we've got like 50-some kids out there, about a month and a half. And that of the ones that have been out for about over a year, every single type company, they just can't believe it. Talk to Japan. They just can't believe it. Studio after studio after studio. It's got money. I mean, this is in the face of 15 years of relationship with the United States that says that's impossible.
Okay.
Here we go. Technical issue.
Okay. What happened was this. The original masters are on 1 inch. And when you 1 inch tape has analog sound channel. And so it's encoded for something called Dolby. To be simplistic about it, what Dolby does is it takes the top half and the bottom half of the signal and kind of opens them up and leaves a blank area in between. And so when you put that sound onto an analog recorder, there's a little bit of hiss, low-level hiss in the center. Okay? And then when you take it off the tape, the Dolby decoder kind of puts the two back together and cuts out the center part and no more hiss. Now, because of a technical problem at the studio when we mastered the D2 master tapes, in a normal situation, we would have decoded it at the studio. Okay? But the data, and so the D2 tape would have been crystal digital. There would have still been some hiss on it, but that would be the hiss from the original quarter-inch tape recorders they used to record the voices. Those would be what's called source hiss. Okay? It wouldn't be the 1 inch, recording hiss. So, because their Dolby decoder was down that day, we had to put undecoded sound onto the D2 master. And that is not standard. Since D2 is digital, we always decode on the D2. So we put stickers on the tape, and we put notices on the tech sheet. Big. It's like, this tape is not Dolby decoded. It must be decoded for mastering. And on the mastering sheet, we sent the 3 in. We said, we need Dolby decoding. And what happened was, they took one look and said, it's D2. Plugged it in and didn't decode it. And that's why that was hissing. There's also, some people have reported, we haven't actually verified this yet, some people reported that there's a slight hissing problem on, I think, the left channel on one side of the fourth laser piece. Okay. As far as we can tell, this was not a 3M problem. This was our problem. It happened in the studio, despite the fact that I listened to it. It apparently happened downstream of the point at which I listened to the tape. And we are waiting for the original master tape that's sent to Korea, because they're dubbing it in Korean. And we're waiting for them to come back. They were supposed to be back just before we left, but they haven't come back. And we're going to double check the masters.
Apparently it was a bad wire cable.
Yeah.
Or
it was basically a Murphy gotcha. And if we can verify that that is not actually on the source master, in other words, it was actually a problem in the studio, we'll remaster that disc as well. Yes.
How do you tell, if they're leaking through business?
Basically, the way I look at it is that most of the original ones that needed to be replaced have been replaced. So most likely, especially if you order direct from us, you get a good one. Okay. If you happen to get an old one, and you can hear the difference, because quite frankly, the kind of hiss that you're hearing is only really audible on good stereo systems. And by people, especially younger people who have good ears. Once you hit 30 or 35, your ears can't hear it. Okay? Unless you really, really crank it up. Okay? At normal listening levels, a lot of people have no problem with even the things that happen. The first one will be decoded. Okay? Because quite frankly, on just a standard, any old stereo system, the stereo is going to introduce hiss. Because, there's going to be hiss that comes from that, and you can't pick out the difference. The people who are noticing the sound imperfection on the first level of the crisis laser hiss, what we corrected it, are people who have really high-end equipment and really high-end.
We got many compliments on that first tape. How great it sounded. We said, oh, that's just good. No, but I mean, because their equipment did not have that type of tuning that caught that fine.
When we did the Kimagura and Road mastering, I checked tapes myself, and I thought they were acceptable. So I sent them to America and said, well, pay very close attention to the sound. So the American studio that does our tape duplication also checks our master tapes for us. And they said, these tapes are hissing. I said, no, check this out. They're not. We sent them back and we checked them against our original masters that we had gotten from Toho, which were G2, and they were identical, and they did have a small amount of hiss on them. So we then went back to the infamous Tokyo Developing Lab, which is the company that does the film development on everything we've ever done. They're like, they do it for everybody. And they had the original 1-inch Kimagura masters. Okay? We checked those are hissy too. Turns out, we went and talked to the sound engineers. Turns out that hiss on Kimagura and Road is because they were assembled on 1/4-inch tape, which is inherently hissy. Okay? So there's no hiss from the video recording method, but there is hiss from the original recording of the voices. Okay? So what we did was, by the way, we also checked the Kimagura and Road Japanese record collection. It's hissy too. So what we did was, the digital soundtracks for Kimagura are all exactly as they were on the Japanese release. But on the analog soundtrack, what we did was we ran it through the noise reduction again. And what that basically does is, again, it kind of chops up the middle and moves things down. Gets rid of a lot of the hiss, but at the cost of making the soundtrack slightly less brilliant. But again, on most stereo systems, you're not going to notice it. So we put a little card in the disc explaining this, so that you basically get your choice. You can have like a really brilliant timbre because the songs in Kimagura are very bright. In fact, at some point they're right on the edge of exceeding the specs for original sound on lasers. So we give you the choice between slightly less bright and no hiss or very little hiss on the silent parts and the original brilliant sound. Yes.
I was going to say that also something we include. There's lots of stuff. I was curious how you all like the mic.
On Otaku no video, they're primo.
Oh, I swear.
You can call it AnimEigo on the Bible. I think the special Otaku.
Of course, $39.95.
Yeah, right.
They work with the Dojinshi as well.
The persons to really give credit for those are Natsumi, actually my wife, and Michael House. Because after a master each tape, they go over it and the script, they make notes while they're doing their checking. They do the final checking of the translation. They make notes and they go back and do all the research necessary to get probably spend a whole day on it.
So the thing is with doing a public service, especially something like visual, double, triple entendre in Japanese, unbelievable. I love the historical characters. Just, I love the,
Oh, yeah. First.
we're talking to the class, but parent person, it was something we really wanted. Everybody, I want to see this thing. And every convention would always want to show this. So we only saw a few hundred copies. It almost got lost in shopping because Toshiba, that's nice. I took it. Toshiba Video went down the tubes, and the rights to the thing almost disappeared in the legal morass. And because we were fighting hard, we were able to scoop it out just before it all went to liquidation. Some of it ended up, in fact, the laser disc was published in Europe. 1980, 85, and when 85 came out, we only had, there was never a public release of lasers in 1985, first one. The advanced orders that Kinex had taken, they filled, and that was it. Never showed up in the store.
Yeah, we have a question in the back, I believe.
Well, I ended up with the 85 Laserdisc, so must have got out somehow.
Yeah, a few got out.
No, I mean, there were few, there was hardly any that were available. A lot of people who had ordered never got them through. You know, like Laser Perceptions had an order, standing order for 80 or 100 copies, and only got something like that.
Bro went to the screening of, I think it was 85, and, no, 85, yeah, and they had outside of the screening room, they had a table where you could order the laser disc, and if you ordered the laser disc, you got a really nice neat cell, so he's sitting there crying with all these great cells.
They wouldn't give me a cell. They wouldn't give me a cell. They had a stack of cells like this in 1982. Free. If you put an order for lasers, you got a cell. Your choice. All nicely packed.
So they give him a press copy of the LD, but they weren't going to give him a cell. We can start Well, I do have one that's really funny. Every so often, you know how sometimes you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and you just like kick yourself later. Well, this isn't one of those stories. This is a story of saying the absolute right thing at the right time. I won't tell you what title it is because you can guess, but we're dotting the i's and crossing the t's. Dotting the i's, crossing the t's, crossing the t's. We're finalizing the contract on this. Probably the next head of the gospel will tell you about it. But anyway, I'm at a certain unnamed video company, video publishing company, not actually production. And we're chatting about a few things that we do. And so we're at sort of like after business chatting, and they asked me, and I'm sort of struggling with my Japanese, very bad. They sort of asked me, like, well, what anime have you seen in the last year that you really like a lot? And I'm like racking my brain. What have I seen that I can say? And I couldn't think of anything that I knew these people had done, so I figured I'll just have to wing it and tell them the truth. So I say, well, there's this one particular title, which was, and I liked it so much that I actually bought the laser disc. I thought it was really good, and I was thinking, they did this one, released this one, and the guy that I was talking to suddenly gets this big smile on his face and says, well, gee, thank you, I was the producer.
We actually are running out of time. It's been a really fun chat with you, as always. Thank you again for all your help and support, and we'll bring you lots more great videos.